All right, good evening. Wilbert Cook at Hand Up Recovery Homes. Glad to be out with you this evening, and we have a very special guest. She was with us a little over a year ago, and she's continuing to design things like the jackets she has on, t-shirts, sweatshirts, caps. She is a designer by nature, and most of her designs have a very spiritual message in them or inspirational message. But because I don't know as much detail as I would like yet, and we're going to let her, Toyin, tell you about her organization, how it was conceived, and some of the things she's doing so that she can move the organization forward, and how she's collaborated with churches, our group, and other groups to help them in their efforts. And we are building an opportunity for our people throughout the city and those that want to change their life, live a better life. And without further ado, Toyin, who has been accepted by God.
Hey everybody, so I'm Toyin. I am the owner of The Original, Rejected by Man, Accepted by God. We are a modern day faith-based clothing brand that speaks to those who have dealt with rejection, who have been overlooked, who have been underestimated. So we have clothing that empowers men and women through faith. So we have like a powerful message that speaks to everyone.
All right. You might want to mention a couple of your key positive inspirations and or ideals. That'd be great for them to know, because I'm sure you have a pretty solid foundation.
I do. So this is one of my designs, accepted by God. It speaks to those who, it emphasizes true acceptance is from God. It speaks to those who have dealt with rejection, as well as we also have a nonprofit, Accepted by God Foundation, which we work with the churches as well.
Okay, that is great. You know, it is wonderful when you meet people who are out there helping others. You know, one thing we talk about, especially since we deal with recovering from alcoholism, substance abuse, and those that are poly addicted. But you also have those with the different other lifestyles, whether it's women being harassed by men, being abused by men that drives them to the alcoholism, substance abuse. If it's men being abused by women occasionally, but also being abused by other men, drive them to more alcoholism, substance abuse. But the other underlying factor that all of this creates is mental health challenges. Mm-hmm. When people are violated, whether it's personal or not, there's damage done. Mm-hmm. Whether it happens when they're 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old. Oftentimes we damage people mentally, emotionally by mistreating them or by not accepting them, mm-hmm. or by ostracizing them because they live different. Mm-hmm. And one thing I found out through, especially the addiction, we don't debate spiritual matters, we don't debate politics. Mm-hmm. We're about helping people turn their life around who struggle with alcoholism, substance abuse. Mm-hmm. But what it also allowed me to do is accept people for any other issues and or differences. It doesn't have to be an issue. It can be an issue, but it can just be a difference. And you learn to accept people for who they are at that point in time. And that's something that we're struggling with too. People evolve. Mm-hmm. And you might could speak to that a little more, how people evolve that you know that you've met. From some states of being not accepted to being accepted, but then sometimes even the last thing is accepting themselves because people have beat them up so much. Mm-hmm. And maybe you can speak to some of those struggles.
Most definitely. Pretty much my brand was built based off my personal testimony of dealing with rejection. And so it helped me to develop spiritually as well as mentally and physically. So I actually created like a positive impact in assisting women and children facing hardship through my brand. I have assisted one single mother with 6 months of living, with 6 months of living and housing, and I also assisted with single mother of 5 with over $500 in funding to help her with homelessness, as well as she dealt with domestic violence and just being rejected by a family. So.
Okay, yeah. So I really like that fact that you give to people, because I'm one of them that for a while almost everything I had went straight to the church. As I grew in my recovery, then I took my extra and then I spent it on helping people struggling with addiction. Whether it was housing, whether it was food, whether it was sometimes clothing, whether it was bed linen, whether it was a coat. And I do all those things also. But what I learned is, if the church institution is not aligned with me helping people, then I have a right to build a similar structure that does help people. So, a few years ago, we were building a ministry and it didn't take off. Well, I'm still building the ministry, but I stopped funding the ministry we're building, and I'm working on to continue to fund the established institution that I call church. And I'm realizing that, no, I cannot leave our ministry God gave me out. So I'm doing both, and I'm supporting my local denomination, but I'm also supporting the ministry of me helping people directly, as well as we do have a Hand Up, which we work with and we help fund for this program until we get other government funded, private funding. And we're working on some other funding stream sources, and even putting together probably a video in the next 3 months. And right now I'm working on some other projects that are just totally separate, independent, which hopefully I'll get on WTTW or streaming or something. We'll get this piece that I'm working on now, which is a documentary of one of my mentors in the community that rose to world prominence because he was able to build consensus with people. So the reality is that there are different ways we can help each other, help people, help those that are rejected. And then many of us, we spend our money helping people directly.
Yes.
Because sometimes we can build a lot of institutions, and money will go straight up. We'll renovate them. They'll look great. And then it's still a struggling family outside that door that they'll say they don't have any funding for.
Right.
We'll buy new couches, new chairs in some of these places. So I'm glad to know that you're helping families of 6 directly. You're helping families of 5 directly. You're helping provide rental assistance out of your pocket, right? Well, like I said, I know how it is to do out your pocket. And actually support a group that you think will do some of it, and then find out a lot of it they don't want to do.
Exactly.
They'll buy flowers for this occasion, that occasion, and then say they don't want to give $100 to somebody to have one of the members take them to a grocery shop.
Oh, yeah.
We got $150 flowers sitting here today. But we won't get them 50, 100, 75 to go shopping down the street. Put the groceries in their hand. They don't have to put money in people's hands all the time. Sometimes if you leery, go take a few minutes and go shop with them.
Absolutely.
And I got a spiritual leader that does that. And so I'm really happy with that part. But sometimes getting other people to join in, help, it's tough.
Yeah.
But we don't stop. Right. Us. Right. We have to keep going. And it's funny. I have a couple family members who I can get little help over in the old neighborhood from, but they've been reminding me keep going. I'm like, wow, thank you all.
You're the one.
But can you fund the revolution?
Right. Absolutely.
Can you stop funding the credit cards?
Yes.
And fund the revolution of helping our people and our struggling community. But it is what it is, So speaking of that, I'm sure you have a story or two about what has you being more directly helpful to people. And part of it, I think you mentioned, but there's probably a few parts you didn't mention, and let me let you segue into some of the similar things you may have experienced with this institution, that institution, or this group or that group, and it didn't do exactly what you would have liked. So you start doing more things yourself, and with you created an organization, you even expand on all of that.
Absolutely. So you always just want to be the help that you always needed. So I have always had a compassion for my community. I've always been helpful, and then I always been active in my community. So I had a lot of pushback when it came to certain churches that were small, that would host some of my community events, but that didn't stop me from helping the community. I still stood outside and continued to do the community events. So yeah, it's always like pushback from certain like leaders and stuff when you trying to do something positive, because a lot of times they might not know you.
Right.
They're not familiar with you. Then you taking over their territory. So so I always want to be respectful and mindful, just to at least communicate what I'm doing, and then at least ask for assistance for them to help me with what I'm doing with the organizations and stuff.
It's great because, it's peculiar, but I was just thinking, I got my little dog tag, my from work over here somewhere hanging out. I do have a day job, and I do all this work in the community. I try to help in the church. I try to help other agencies, civic groups, and other community groups, CAPS with the police, try to help bridge that gap, improve those relationships, even though sometimes they act like they don't understand. Though it's not the ones in the meetings. Just many of them need to be in the meeting, never in the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with the issues they have in our community and talking to people like they don't belong in the communities they live in, drive around. The famous phrase when they stop you on a traffic violation, why are you over here? Because this is where we live. Okay. People look like me live over here. Yeah. It's your area you came from, that we usually don't live, or if we start moving in, a lot of you all move out. And it still happens, unfortunately, and it's sad. However, and then they gentrifying. They cleared the land and they gentrifying it now and pricing us out. Yeah. Then our famous west suburb we loved, Oak Park, now is on a new thing where everything new there is $3,000-$4,000 to move in, whether it's a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. And it's sad because they're pricing affordable people out. And now they saying, hey, if you're not upper middle class, you don't have to come to Oak Park as the next best neighborhood outside the city. Wow. You can go a little bit further to Maywood or Broadview. You can't afford ours condos and apartments anymore. But I'm glad they building up. I hate some of the financial dynamics that can exclude good people that want a good environment to live not far from the city. But they have been very successful developing a good community. Unfortunately, more and more things come out where a lot of the racism biases have been pervasive and created some unequal dynamic structures, even sometimes among themselves. Some of the private schools don't think Oak Park River Forest is such a great school, or competitively they had their issues because it's been more integrated in things. So it's interesting to see the dynamics we struggle with. Right. Then if you add any other things, sexual, intimacy partners, lack of intimacy, mental health, addiction, it just really, we can find a lot of excuses not to embrace each other, embrace one another. But the reality is our differences are our strength. Always have been in this country. Strength and we have to embrace. And as they say in political circles, it's about addition, not subtraction.
Exactly.
One of my colleagues in the community always say, shake a hand and make a friend.
Okay.
And that is so important that we sometimes, that handshake, that embrace, that smile, smile, saying hello, recognizing a person's presence, that does wonders. Today, leaving work, I spoke to a half dozen people coming through the corridor and leaving. It's never been quite like that. A lot of times everybody would kind of walk past each other, but we were smiling and speaking today, and I left that downtown area feeling rejuvenated. And even though it wasn't a whole bunch of people there, because things are not a lot of remote workers, but the fact the few of us that were there was valuing each other being present.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you know how to do, you've learned, you appreciate, and it's something, unfortunately, you probably dealt with, not always being validated, appreciated. And you might want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So,
I'm going to let you talk a little bit again.
I have dealt with being overlooked, being misunderstood, not being good enough just by society standards. So it's been like just really helpful to me to actually build a brand that speaks to more than just me, as well as a nonprofit that that speaks to more than just one family.
Okay.
It's impacting like the city. So I just believe in just standing firm on your like identity, just your spiritual beliefs, of course, and just stand in Christ.
Okay. All right, that is great to hear. And I mean, I am so ecstatic when I get spiritual people on, religious people on. Even though we can't dive into the scriptures, we can't, shake our Bible at them. We can't shake any books because it's like you're endorsing it. But the reality is that that's a common denominator that helps a lot of us, no matter what the struggle, to have it, the hope Obama talks about, or to have inspiration in, or the spirit within us. And people call the spirit so many different things, from the Indians to the Africans to all of us in America. But I still believe in that scripture and that phrase and those T-shirts that say, one faith, one God, one baptism. Now that's usually attributed to Christians, but it really can be attributed to all kind of faiths on a principle level.
Everybody.
And those are some of the common denominators. And if we say he's, omnipresent, omnipotent, but like vehicles, like vans and SUVs, there are different models and makes, but the goal is to get you from point A to B.
Right.
And if they had a way, they're going to have an aircraft here, there, everywhere. The rich folks going to have one to help get you up in the sky, to look around, or up in the sky to visit someplace and come back. Or up in the sky and you might implode with the stars. But anyway, hopefully not. Hopefully not. But it's a possibility if they get you on the wrong craft and they go up there and malfunction. And then, listen, but the base, the booster comes back and lands, but the rocket itself has become a big old a piece of fireworks in the sky. So hopefully no one is on those. So far so good lately, but it's interesting. But back to that all-encompassing. I know you want to eventually create probably some jobs.
Oh, I have.
I know you're working on probably a manuscript to help people some. I know you may eventually have a whole production line, primarily working T-shirts, eventually a production line.
I actually
that does
this
the caps.
is my I actually hired creative jobs for the community.
Oh, creative, right? Okay, right, lifestyle work.
I have hired my fifth worker. Who's
Okay,
with
that's
me.
great. Okay.
I hired like teenagers from 16 through 24, so
Whoa,
teenagers
good
and
group,
young
good group.
adults.
Yes.
So they are developing sales associate skills, like social media manager, like housekeeping, and just different things that they're learning from me in general. Like a lot of the hardships that I face with even having a storefront,
Okay.
they are right there with me, so I actually teach them how to, get out of a dilemma. Like being an entrepreneur, you always have to figure it out. So when am faced with certain dilemmas, I teach them steps on how to get out. For instance, I had a guy who was creating like my t-shirts for me. Usually I create them in-house on my own, but when you, like, I work full-time too.
All right. Okay.
So I didn't have the time to it, so I decided to hire someone, gave him specific instructions on how to do the t-shirt designs. However, he failed to give me what I asked for.
Okay.
And so with having that dilemma and having like a delay with getting it to customers because it was messed up, now I have to work with this guy on how to handle the situation without getting angry and just communicating. And
Right,
so
okay,
things
right.
can be back into play.
Oh.
So yeah.
Well, I've been through that before with my business cards with my local buddy and a business person. And it's funny because when I went to the print shop in my brown community with my Mexican printer, if he messed up, he was so nice. He's like, I'll have a use for these cards. Here, take them, and even if you got to scratch this out or that out, you use them here and there if need be. Or they extras to even write notes on, right? That's what he does. My buddy would mess up the cards and still want me to pay for them.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
show
they
up,
do.
to an event at the end of the event instead of the beginning of the event, saying I got to pay for my marketing advertisement,
They do.
billboard or whatever, or banner.
They do.
Hold on, I've been through most of this event without the banner, and now you still want me to pay you, and you bring it, at the latter part. So, needless to say, I still helps that business, but I'm not as anxious as I once was. I've even not been able to fill some media positions because I couldn't reach the person. But soon they had a question or two about this, that, or the other business-wise for me. All of a sudden, then when I'm saying, oh, well, I had something I wanted your group to work on with me, it was like, oh, well, let's do it. I'm like, dude, I called you 2-3 months ago. After 2-3 times, I realized you busy and you got a lot in play. I moved on. And in actuality, some of that funding just didn't get spent. I'd rather return it than misuse it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather get a quality job or no job.
Yeah.
And we got quality and we didn't get as much of it. And I had 3 or 4 people work on the same project and everybody was fudging on keeping on top of things. It's almost like you give them the instruction and you got to keep going back reminding them.
You have to
But the
follow up.
job is for you to follow up because you're going to get paid every day that you show up at work. Or the other thing I'm finding out is people want to work remote and they don't like coming in for these media jobs, helping on the computers, helping put up the Facebook page, helping update it. And I'm like, no, until I can get satisfied with what the quality of work and the amount of work. And I want you to show up with us,
Yeah.
and
You have to
I
keep
find out,
searching.
people. So I keep
that
going,
passion.
so we're working on that. And this last minute you want to wrap up, but we do have a recovery event coming, the 31st of May, Character Center AME Church, 1448 South Homan, from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. But also now you can go ahead and
I
let
would
them
like
know
for
where
you
to find
guys
you.
to join me at my storefront, 849 West 115th Street.
Okay.
And I also am at Boxville at 51st and Calumet. And follow me on Instagram, BeOriginal429.
All right, Be Original 429. And again, a hand up is doing a speakathon. We're having people from the different recovery fellowships, AA, NACA. We might even have a OA or EA, a overeater and or emotional anonymous person, or a little bit of all of that, because sometimes you have all that going on. However, you can meet us at Character Centenary, 1448 South Holman, at 1 p.m. Saturday afternoon, May 31st, and we will be there to 6 p.m. wrapping up all 12 steps. Thank you. It's been a wonderful evening. Great. Thank you, Toyin, for coming out.
Thank you so much for having me.
And look forward to continuing to work together, helping our communities.
Thank you.